How many people are already, you would say, you're very familiar with VS 2008? Very familiar. Okay, good. This is a good number of you. So this is kind of an overview of VS 2008. So it'll be a very entertaining talk for you, I'm sure, but there's not going to be a lot of news for you. So I do encourage you to hang out, but I'm not going to kind of give away anything more than what's already in VS 2008. What I'm going to do is, to make it kind of more fun for me, hopefully more fun to you, so I decided to do no slides and just kind of walk through actually building an app. So to give you something to sort of take away with you, I actually just blogged right before this session a kind of full overview of it. So if you go over to that URL, you can find kind of more information about it. So, okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go, so this is Visual Studio 2008. I'm using Professional, I think, but everything I'm showing works in the free version of Visual Studio. So it's an absolutely free version. It's not a trial. It's Visual Studio Web Developer Express. So that's free, and it's always free. And it does everything, all the data access, everything I'm going to show you in this app. So if you're evaluating VS or you just want to kind of go and play with it, you're not ready to take the plunge, it's a good choice. So we'll go ahead and create a new website. What kind of app do we want to build? Anybody got thoughts on what we want to build here? What kind of AJAX app should we build? Nobody's going to jump in with me? A mashup? Okay. Anybody else? Somebody want to suggest like a photo site? Photo site. Okay, good. I heard somebody. Okay, photo site. Sure, we'll do the mashup later. Okay, photo site. Okay, that's great. So we'll call this like the MIX photo site. And then one thing to call your attention to is this drop down here, and this lets you select the version of the .NET framework that you want to target. So what's great about VS 2008 is that your development team can upgrade to VS 2008, but still target servers that only have .NET Framework 2.0 installed. And that's important because sometimes you can't control your hoster or you can't control your own IT department in terms of what they put out there. But yet you still want to take advantage of some of the cool stuff that I'm going to show you in VS 2008. So just to show you how that works, I'm going to go ahead and start off with a 2.0 website. Okay. So to kind of get us started, I have some very basic HTML. Let's see actually if the... And you can see this is literally just a UL tag with a set of images in it. So there's kind of not a lot of stuff there. Very basic, right? So we definitely need the images. So I'll go and drag those in. Okay, so pretty basic site, just listing a bunch of images. So the first thing I want to talk about is the great CSS support. We've really embraced strongly the CSS standards. It's the way the web is styled. And what's really important about CSS is that there's a clean separation between the HTML code and the CSS and the kind of styling. That way you can kind of change that styling over time. You can have designers work on the styling while leaving the HTML code unchanged. So just to demo that a little bit, I wanted to change this long list of images here from being a long list to being sort of a grid layout. What I'm going to do is come in here to the source view. I'm going to go ahead and change this LI to be a table. Is that a good idea? Okay, I'm hearing table probably not the best approach for doing layouts in the web. This kind of a 5-year-old kind of thing. So instead, I'm going to go in and create a new CSS style. So let's do this. We'll come in here and find the manage CSS style. So we have a whole new control box here for that. And I'm going to go ahead and say create a new style. And this gives me kind of the UI way to go about creating a CSS style. And I'm going to actually use what's called CSS selectors, which again is a standards-based thing. And I'm going to create a style for an LI tag within an item with the name, with the class ID of photo list. And you can see in here what I can do is I can change, I have rich previews, I can go and change a bunch of stuff. I can really build the style out in a visual way here. So that's a nice feature. I can also define where the style goes. If I want that style to be embedded in this HTML page, or in my case, I actually want to create a separate style sheet so that designers could go and work with that separately. So we'll go ahead and create a new style sheet. And now Visual Studio will go ahead and create the style sheet, and it'll link it back to this page. So that's pretty nice. I can come in here and click on the photo list, and it brings me into the CSS view. And now I know some of you aren't the most wizard-loving people, so you might not like the dialog box I just showed. And some of you kind of want to get into the code, so you can kind of go do that. We have great, what we call code-focused support in Visual Studio for editing CSS. So if you wanted to change the background color to fuchsia, that would be an easy thing to do. This gives you a hint as to what all the CSS options and whatnot are. But we don't want to do that, actually. So what we want to do is come in here to split view. And one thing I didn't show you is this brand new feature of VS 2008 is split view, where you can see the design time and the runtime, the design time and the preview at the same time. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm in the middle of the code, and I don't know exactly where that is in the UI. What's great is that as I'm changing in code, it's flipping the UI. It's kind of keeping things in track. And what's cool is I can actually come in here, and you see it says some text there. I can say, I can do this, and I get a kind of live preview of what's that going to look like. So that's a pretty cool thing. And I can also do the reverse, so I can come in here and change it in the designer. And you see, as I change it in the designer, it actually changes in the code mode too. So that's a very, very cool feature of the designer. But we're going to switch over to source view now and go ahead and attach that style sheet. So we'll go ahead and set the class. And notice VS is giving me, again, code-focused support here. So I can come in and it's actually parsed that CSS sheet that's been attached and pulled out the appropriate classes. And is giving me a completion list for that. So now I've associated that class. So now the next thing we want to do is go in and check out this next CSS properties window. So what's cool, go switch back to design mode here, is if I click on these elements, the thing I want to style is a conceptual thing, right? It's not the image, and it's not the whole form. It's just the LI tag. It's the list item. So the way you go about selecting that is you click on the image, and then if I hit escape, you notice the highlighting. It goes ahead and highlights the whole thing. And then if you're a little bit lost, there's a breadcrumb bar at the bottom here that shows you exactly where you are within the HTML tree. So I can go ahead and select that guy, and then I can go ahead and style it. So in this case, what I want to do is go ahead and do the, see if I remember how to do this. So I do the layout, go ahead and display those inline. So I'm going to display them inline. And you notice I'm still getting some weird wrapping that's not doing exactly what I want to do. So I'll go ahead and change the flow to float left. So that's getting to be a lot closer to what I was looking at, but it still seems kind of crammed in there. So what I can do is, you notice while I have the list items selected, I get these grab handles here. So I can actually do WYSIWYG editing of this thing and go ahead and change the size of that so I can get some nice spacing there. So that looks really good. And then if I go back to the style sheet, notice what's changed here. VS has gone in and added those properties that I did within the CSS property browser, as well as set the width and height to be something that's kind of very clean. And now I can come in here and tweak this if I need to do that. Okay, so that's the CSS styling. So the next thing, if we're going to create a real site, you might want to have it kind of look a little bit better than this. So what I'm going to do is use ASP.NET master pages. It's a concept we introduced in 2.0, but just to show you kind of still applicable in this world, show you how that works. So I'm going to just come in here and grab the site master, and then give it a nice style sheet. Yes, yes, yes. So now, now what I need to do is, I should have done this in a different order. Now, if you come in here and say Add Content Page, then the way just to give you a brief overview of Site Masters, nothing big has changed there. But what the Site Master does is you define a page that you want a common look and feel across your site. That's what the Site Master defines. So I'm going to want them all called Mix Photo List. And then in the head, I'll have a content placeholder where I'll say any of the content pages, any of the individual pages in the site can go and add content there. And then I'm going to have some menu structure that I fill in with these divs. And then down here at the bottom within the form, I have another content placeholder that's going to be the body of the content. So what that means is that any of these content pages, the way they look like, is they have two content places, one for the head and one for the content. So what we'll do is we'll come in here into the content, and we'll go ahead and kind of paste back in this code that we've worked on. So we'll pop that in there, and now when we view this in the designer, we have a really nice view. So let me just show that in the browser. So again, a nice thing with Visual Studio 2008, we have the web development server, so you don't have to have IIS on your machine or any other web server. You can go ahead and do development right within that. So that's a nice feature. So there we go. So now we have a kind of a nice looking site. We're using this common layout. And the CSS management was very easy to do. So I'm happy to take questions as I go. Anybody have any thoughts here? Yeah.
You just mentioned the web development feature.
Yep.
When you actually preview that, are there any issues like there kind of used to be that actually it would actually show up correctly all the time?
Seems to work pretty well for me. I mean, we run the exact same ASP.NET engine. It's just kind of rather than hosted in IIS, it's hosted in this.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have the issues when you actually port it to a development environment. You're always going to have that.
Yeah, when you mean a production environment. Yeah, so in theory, it should just work to go post it there. But a lot of times things change, like where the images are, where the scripts are. So there are some things that sometimes in real world have to be tweaked. Right. Any other questions so far? Yeah. I actually don't know. It is hosting kind of a web browser control. We actually completely re-implemented the web designer, so I don't know if it requires IE7 or not. But if you pop me an email, I can go find out. Okay. Well, there you go. So I'm sorry, for the tape, what he said was it's actually using our own custom renderer that does kind of a better job at standards compliance. Any other thoughts so far? How many people are actively using CSS today on your site? Okay, great. Okay, good. I guess that was a good investment. Okay, cool. So far what I showed you was kind of doing some basic site design, the site layout, using CSS, the new CSS features, new split view, and all that works with 2.0. What I want to do is go ahead and upgrade this project now to 3.5 and then show off some of the 3.5 features. So if I come over here to the property page and change build, actually before I do that, let me just prove it to you in case there's doubters in here. So you come in to add references just to show you. Add references is what developers use to decide kind of what components they can use. And if you notice, a bunch of these are grayed out, and they're grayed out because they're like system web extensions is where all the AJAX functionality is. They're grayed out because if you're running an ASP.NET 2.0 site, you can't use this. And this keeps developers from kind of stumbling into using the wrong thing and then only discovering it at deployment time that they have a problem. So this allows developers to target just 2.0. So those are grayed out right now. So I'll come back over here to the property page, and you see how easy it is to just upgrade the site to 3.5. Now, you can also go back to 2.0, which Also works very easily if you haven't used any 3.5 features. But if you've taken advantage of 3.5, then obviously going back to 2.0 will be harder. Okay, so now we've changed it to 3.5. And one thing, while we're talking about that, I know there's some confusion about, I'm targeting 3.5, but the IS still says it's CLR 2.0 or Dynamic Framework 2.0. The way we've done 3.5 is we decided to layer it on top of 2.0. So the way the installer for 3.5 runtime works, it installs 2.0 and installs 3.0 and 3.5 on top. And that's a significant benefit because it's much easier to deploy if you already have 2.0 on the box. It's very easy to get the 3.5 bits on top of that because it's just a small delta. And the other benefit is it enabled us to do this kind of multi-targeting support in an easy way. So future versions of .NET Framework will be completely side by side and have a new version of the CLR. I know people are kind of looking forward to that. Okay, so now we've upgraded to 3.5. Let's take a look at what you can go do. So I don't think we're quite at the real world state with our page yet. So because I have all these statically included here, and what you might want to do is do that in a more programmatic way. So what I'm going to do is, rather than having the static list, I'm going to show a new control that we introduced in ASP.NET 3.5 called list view. And list view is really designed to make it easier to do these kind of very standards-based declarative markups. So whereas something like data grid kind of it decides the layout and what the HTML will generate, list view lets you customize it. You decide what you want the headers to look like and what you want the layout to look like. So it's a very cool server control. So I'll go ahead and say run at server and give it the ID of photo list. So the way list view works is there's a bunch of templates, but for our case, what we really care about is the layout template, which will define kind of what the headers and whatnot look like for it. And then the repeating part of it will be in the item template. And what's cool here is we kind of already have this information below. So in the layout template, we want to get this UL and close the UL there. So we'll say that the kind of stationary part will be a UL, and then the item template will be one of these LIs. So let's just grab one as an example one to go stick in here. And now we're done with this. So I can go ahead and get rid of that. Yep. So then the way this works is the control will emit the layout template, and then for as many items as you data bind to, it'll emit the item template. So what we need to do is go tell it where to put the item template within the layout template. So there's a new control called the ASP placeholder control. And we'll say run at equals server and ID equals placeholder. So this will tell, what this will do is tell the list view control kind of where to stick the items within the layout template. So it's between the UL. And then we need to go ahead and tell the item template kind of which placeholder is which. So what's it called? Items placeholder? Yes. Item placeholder is PH. And then Control ED does a format, so we can kind of make it look a little bit nicer. So now if we go and switch into design mode here, it gives us a bit of a preview. It kind of does a little bit of dummy data and gives us a preview of it. And you can see we preserve that nice layout that we built. Because again, we're just using the standards-based layout. So we preserved the work we did in CSS, but then we get a nice repeating elements there. But you probably don't want to repeat all the same item. You probably want to get data, and a lot of times where your data is stored in some database somewhere. So let's go ahead and pull over data from a database and talk a little bit about how to work with that. So I've created a relatively simple database called Photos that's just going to store the information about where these photos are and kind of what's there. So I'm using SQL Server Express Edition. So again, it's a free version of SQL Server. that's intended for development time scenarios, and it comes with SQL Express as well. It comes with Visual Studio Web Developer Express as well as the full product. And what this does is it allows you at development time to work on the app with some data and kind of mock up what the data is going to look like. And then at production time, you can choose to use Oracle or SQL or whatever you have. So I have a couple tables in here, and just to give you an idea of what's available there, I'll come in here and show the table data so you can get a sense for what my database sort of looks like. So it's sort of simple. We just have the ID, the title, a path to where the images are. I could have stored the images in the database, but I chose to just do a path, a description, and some ratings. And then I also have a tag table. And the way the tag table looks, it actually has a foreign key. So the tag table basically does a mapping to tags for a given photo. So I show you that because what I want to show you now is a new feature of .NET Framework 3.5 and Visual Studio called Link. So how many people are already pretty familiar with Link? Okay, good. Almost 20% of you. That's good. So what Link is it's a common way to work with data. As a .NET developer, I know .NET very well. I know C#, VB.NET. I can work with that. But I'm kind of a data idiot. Like, I don't want to have to work with T-SQL and try to get stored procedures to work right. Having that stuff embedded in my code is probably not the right thing. Trying to do syntax checking within a T-SQL string is kind of painful to do. So what Link to SQL does is it maps the relational data to an objective view of that data. So it gives me .NET classes for it. So we'll go ahead and call this photos. And VS is now telling me it wants to put it in the app code folder, so that's just following best practices. So now the way this is going to work is we'll drag over the tables onto this design surface, and then the designer will go ahead and interrogate the metadata for those tables and figure out what the relationships are between them. So for example, it knows that there is a foreign key relationship between photos and tags, and that's important for the object model that we're going to end up creating. The other thing to notice is that it has done some work here to figure out what the right naming of these things should be. So, for example, I called the table photos. That's kind of the logical name. But then a given element of it, which is modeled here, should be called photos. So it does the kind of naming pluralization work. But of course, you can kind of come in here and customize these however you want. If it doesn't do kind of exactly the right thing, you can change those. And you can also change the modeling of how the data works. So if you wanted to change the name, if the database, the DBA had kind of a screwy name for something and you want to expose a different name to your .NET developers, you can go in and customize this as well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save that guy. And then we'll switch back over and show a little bit of code, how to go code against this thing. So later I'm going to show, there's kind of a couple ways to work with it. I think it's most instructive to think about how you code it kind of manually, but there's also a declarative way that I'll show you kind of towards the end of the talk. So you can decide what works best in any given situation. So photo data context is the class that was generated by the Link designer. Remember, I called it photos is the name of my Link classes. And it created a class called photo data context. And that class encapsulates the connection string, essentially, the logical connection string. So we'll go ahead and create that. And I like to call it DB because it's kind of the name of the database. And then I get to do some link queries. So rather than writing T-SQL code in quotes, I get strongly typed support within C# and VB and within the Visual Studio to go build these out. So I'm going to write this query, but I'm still kind of formulating what it's going to be like. So I don't really know what variable to type this as. It's going to be a list of some generic type or some table of whatever. So I'm just going to use the new keyword in C# called var. And what var means is, compiler, you figure it out. You figure out what type this is going to be. So I'll say varq, and I'll say from photo in db dot. And then, remember we had that table called photos? So there's that table called photos right there, ready for me to get strongly typed access to that. And then I can say from that table, go ahead and select photo. So at this point, I could, I'll show you a bunch of other queries and whatnot you could do, but that's kind of the simplest query. It's essentially a select star kind of statement. So we'll start with that one. And then what was my list called? Photos list. So I'm going to go ahead and just like all the other ASP.NET server controls, the new list view control is data bindable. So I'm going to go ahead and set the data source to be the results of this query here. So now if I go ahead and let's just build it just to make sure. Ah, that's a good call. Thank you. But yes, thank you. Some people are paying attention. Right, and it's asking for using link. Using system.link. Okay, build succeeded. Woohoo. Okay, so this is the hardest part. So now I'll go ahead and view that in the browser, and we can get a sense for what happened. So that looks. We're getting there. Now we're data binding to it. But notice we need to go back in because we wanted high control of our markup. We need to go in and say which field from the photos class it kind of goes with each one of these. So we'll go back in here to photos and switch to source view. And now you can see here in our list item that we're kind of hard coding to a particular one. So what we really want to do is go ahead and pull one out. So let me just grab this here. So I just replaced that image tag. You can see the old one right below it to give you a comparison. So instead of 1.jpg, I'm going to want to do an eval. So if you're familiar with this syntax, it's been around since ASP 1.0, but basically it gives you a chance to put a little bit of .NET code in the middle of your markup. And what I'm going to do, what I'm telling is eval the variable image path, and it looks within the data context that we just set up, and finds if there's any member there called image path, and if so, it goes ahead and uses that. So we can delete that one, and then we want to do the same thing here. We don't want to hard code the title. We want to pull the title right out of the link data model as well. So we'll change this to title. So now when we hit refresh, we should see a bunch of pictures from the database. So those are all now being pulled right out of that SQL Express database that I used. So that's kind of nice. But it was a very simple link query. So there's a lot more power you can do with link. So let's go check that out for a second. So one thing you can do is you can say, you can put a where clause in there. Those are kind of handy to do. You can say where photo dot rating. So maybe I want to show only the highest rated ones. So I can say where photo dot rating equals 4. And if you think about what this is, it's actually pretty neat. It's actually going to take this, compile it down to T-SQL, and spin that back to the server, and then the server goes and executes it and returns it back. So that's kind of cool. We can go ahead and do that, and doesn't like that. Oh, hey, it's got an equals like that. Yeah, there we go. So notice it's only giving me a few of these are only highly rated. But what else is very cool is we can actually capture variables from outside. So I could, pass in a rating, in this case a low rating maybe, and then I can actually capture the variable from within here. And that gives me a way to kind of programmatically control that. So there you go. So those are the ones that are kind of lower rated. So again, that's kind of cool. Obviously, in this case, it's a little bit trivial. I'll show you one a little bit later that's kind of more real world, but just to show you that you can kind of customize those. The other thing that's interesting is you can do an order by within here to kind of control how these guys are ordered. And that's interesting because I actually want to come in here and go into the tags table. And notice how easy it is to navigate the tags table. There's a kind of a many to one relationship between tags and photos. So it gives me a plural property tags, and it returns back a collection. And in this case, just for simplicity, I want to go ahead and get the first one or a default one if there's not a first one available. And then now I get strongly typed access to the tags class that was created. and I can go in and find tag name. So I'm going to order these by tag name, and then go ahead and do those in an ascending way. So now when we go ahead and sort these, that it gets sorted kind of by the tag. So again, just wanted to demo a little bit of how powerful the query syntax within LINQ is. The other thing that's very cool about LINQ, is this exact LINQ query today works over with LINQ to SQL. It works with SQL. As the Entity Framework comes out, it works with a wide variety of databases that EF will support later this year. It works today against .NET objects in memory. The exact same query will work against .NET objects in memory. The exact same query will work with an XML file. We have linked to XML. So it's kind of really nice. Once you learn this data access mechanism, this link to SQL, this linked data access that we're looking at here, then it'll work against a very wide variety of data sources. So any questions about LINQ or thoughts on that before we press on? Yeah. A single what list? A join, yes. Can you do a join between two? Yeah, I believe you can. So the question is, can you join kind of two tables from two data contexts? I believe you can. I haven't actually personally done it, but based on my understanding of how it works, it should definitely work. Yeah.
Where are the filters executing? Are they executing on the server side?
Good question. The question is, where is this where clause in order by being executed? And by default, they're getting executed on the server. So there's actually a bit of a restricted set of things you can do within here. Only those things that we can translate into T-SQL. So there's actually an engine that goes in and translates the IL that gets generated here into. There's an expression tree that gets compiled down to T-SQL. Now, and then what you can do is, now that I get this queue back, because once I get the results back, I can go and I can do queries over it, and then those would happen locally. You know what I mean? So you can actually decide to batch some operations to the server, and then do more filtering and stuff on the client or on the mid-tier. Yeah. Right. What do you? It's scary with the eval statement because.
Whenever you're doing an eval statement, you're raw taking in the string and doing something with it.
Right.
So you said it was possibly to actually have this query take place on the client.
By on the client, I mean in this case the mid-tier ASP.NET server. If you want to do it actually on the client, what do you call it? That thing we've been talking about, Silverlight. Silverlight actually lets you do it it has this, exactly the same query that happens on the client. But for that to work, what you need to do is kind of write a web service that returns the .NET objects, and the web service is where you need to do the validation and whatnot to make sure crazy stuff isn't being sent to the client. Yeah.
Is LINQ going to support the spatial capabilities?
Excellent. Good question. The question is, SQL 2008 is doing the new spatial types. And is LINQ going to support those? I don't know. I believe, in general, I didn't show calling stored procedures, and this is how a lot of that spatial stuff is written. But you can call stored procedures from Entity Framework or LINQ to SQL. So from that perspective, it should. Whether there's kind of built-in support for the spatial types, I don't know. But if you send me an email, I can check it out. Okay, so let me press on a little bit. So this was kind of cool, but if I take all these kind of gratuitous things out of here, then that's kind of a long list of things that come back, and it's not sort of a webby thing to do to return all the images in your database. What you might really want to do is kind of page through there. So I'm going to come in here and add another ASP.NET control called a new ASP.NET control, not within the list view though, called a data pager. And this control allows me to it gives me kind of paging support because that's such a common scenario. So this is my data pager, and I can define a set of fields, and there's a predefined few that are kind of really interesting. So I can do just it'll render as a next previous button, so you can just kind of iterate through them. Or I'll show you the numeric one, where it'll actually show you all the pages with kind of ... in the middle. But then you can also go and use the template, and as long as you follow a set of well-known IDs, you can have your data pager look however you want to. So we'll go ahead and use the numeric one. And then we need to make sure we tell the data pager what control we want to actually page. And in this case, it's photo list. So now when we go render this, you notice we only get a few of the images back, kind of by default. I think it's like 9 or 10 or something like that. 10, I guess. It's 10. But you can go in and change the number that come back. And then and notice as I'm flipping through here, it's kind of paging through the data. So it's very trivial to go in and add paging support. So that's cool, but if you notice, this is sort of an AJAX talk, and as I kind of flip through here, this whole page I'm doing this full page refresh. It maybe doesn't look quite as bad because it's on localhost and it's pretty quick, but it's still blinking that entire page. So what I might want to do is see if I can fix that. And if this is an existing ASP.NET page, I probably don't want to rewrite the whole thing in JavaScript or in Silverlight. I probably just want to, how can I just fix this one page? So, yeah. It's happening, I believe it's happening on the, let's see. Yeah, it's happening in ASP.NET, and what's happening here is when it's affecting how photolist goes and calls the data source. So the pager goes and tells the list view control, hey, go get the next 10 items, and then list view goes and calls the data source and says, hey, give me the next 10. And so the question really is, how does link to SQL handle kind of a give me the next 10 sort of thing? And it has some heuristics built in to decide, how often to hit the database and what to cache locally. But that's kind of controllable from the queries that you write, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's switch through here and go ahead and talk about how to make this thing kind of not flash. Does anybody know what I'm going to show now? Update panel, okay. Should we skip it or no? Okay, so I'll go ahead and talk about update panel for a minute. So it's a new server control. Wow, that's interesting. That makes your screen kind of do really weird things. It's great. Okay, so luckily that came back. Oops. Okay, and then the way update panel works is it has a content template, and you just want to wrap the stuff that we've done in the content template. So I'll go ahead and collapse these guys down just so you can get a sense for what's happening, and go ahead and close off the update panel. So let's just format those to make those. So basically, we have an update panel, and then in the content template, we have our data pager and our list view control. So now when I go back to this page and I hit refresh, it will give me a very helpful error message. It's basically telling me it needs script manager on the page. Did somebody not remind me of that? Okay. You should feel free to jump in. Okay, so it should do it for you. The reason I've actually pushed on that, the reason it doesn't do it for you is that really what I should be doing here is putting the script manager in the master page so it can be shared across all these. And then here I need a script manager proxy. So it's kind of not 100% clear, exactly how to fix these things. It could. Thank you for the feedback. I will take it back to the team. Okay. Yes, and I don't demo why, so I'll just talk about it. The reason is I'm going to show a fairly simplistic scenario, but there are other things like in the update panel also has this set of triggers, and what triggers are useful for is you may want to have another control that's not in the update panel, update that update panel. Do you see what I mean? So there has to be some way to, like for example, if I had the data pager outside of the update panel, then as the data pager changes, I want to change the update panel. And so we needed a way to go encapsulate that. But I'm hearing the general feedback about making it easier to wrap some set of stuff with an update panel. So let's see, where are we here? So now if I page through here, notice as I page through here, I'm not getting that blink anymore. It's just kind of changing the stuff within the update panel. And I know that's a little bit hard to see there, so let me do this. This is kind of my favorite update panel demo, although it's pretty cheesy. I have this H2 tag that basically just prints out the current time. So let me go ahead and add that inside the that's outside the update panel, as you can see. And then I'll go ahead and add one that's inside the update panel. And you can see as I refresh this, I get them both printed out and they're the same time. So when the page first comes back from the server, they're the same time. But then as I cause the update panel to refresh, notice only the one inside the update panel, that time is changing. So that bit of stuff is getting updated. As I hit refresh here, then they'll both sync back up again. Does that make sense? So it's a way you can mark off regions of your page to update independently. How do you not break? So I left that one for Nikhil to demo, but there's a feature in Script Manager that's coming out very soon in a servicing release that is called History. And basically, you can programmatically go in and add history points. You do that on the server or the client. And so when you hit the back button, instead of navigating to some random place, it navigates to the last place you hit it. So go and check that out. So Nikhil's talk was last hour, but you can watch it later. Yeah. Yes. So it works in a completely standard sort of way. So it works in Firefox and Safari and IE down level. And we'll do a release that'll hook in with IE8 support later. But for right now, it just uses the anchor tags, which will continue to work in IE8. It just doesn't use kind of the cool new IE8 only way. So if you kind of use the Script Manager support, it'll work kind of everywhere. Okay, so let me go through and delete these guys because they're kind of not attractive. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do, I totally lost track of. Oh, yes, right. So, I'm doing this thing on localhost. So, my internet connection is pretty fast to localhost, but in the real world, it's not so fast. So, to simulate not so fast, I'm going to add a call. So if you see this, if you're doing a code review and you see one of these in the code, that's a significant problem. So go ahead. Or actually, if you want to put one in and then rip it out later for performance tuning, you can kind of be the hero. Highly recommend it. So I've essentially told it to sleep for 2 seconds on every request, so that to simulate kind of network load or whatever. So now I clicked on it. Wait, and then hopefully it'll come. Probably should have done less time. Yeah, finally it comes. So now I wish I could tell you I have a control in ASP.NET that speeds up the internet, but I don't have that. What I do have is a control in ASP.NET that gives some immediate user response, so that users can know right away that the request is being worked on, that people are diligently at work, making sure that happens. And the lucky thing is that's a pretty easy thing to go and add. So I'll just come down here to the bottom. And I have this update progress control. And it's kind of one of my favorite controls. The way it works is it attaches itself to the update panel, and it notices when the update panel does one of these calls over X. I didn't even mention that. The way the update panel works is it actually takes the region of the page, and instead of doing a post back to the server, it does a call over XML HTTP up to the server, and then runs through the server's page lifecycle, and then takes just the region of the page that changed and brings it back over XML HTTP and then updates that region of the page. That's how update panel works. What update progress does is it notices, it listens. Whenever there's a call going out over XML HTTP, it goes, oh, okay, and it shows its progress template, that progress template that we just stuck in there. And then when the call comes back with the results, we take the progress template down. And so we handle all the logic of when to display that, when to take it down. And all you need to do is just kind of decide what you want to do to tell the user that something's happening. So what I'm suggesting, what I do is I went and actually grabbed an animated GIF, which is kind of a common technique to go indicate to the users that something's happening. We're working on that. All I do here is show this animated GIF. So I come in here and hit refresh. And now, as I click through here, I get that nice animated GIF up there that's telling me something's happening. And then notice we automatically take it away when the results come back. So that's kind of a nice, easy way to go in and add that. The other thing that's very cool is that if you are on a fast connection and the internet's working particularly well for you that day, if you take that out, then we're smart enough to just not display anything. To just if it's quick enough, we don't like blink something up there. So we've done some good usability tests on this and kind of figured out what the right algorithms for that are. Okay, so that's kind of the server side AJAX portion. Any comments, thoughts on that? Yeah. I have a post back where?
I mean, you kind of want to post back behind it on your page when you navigate through the paging.
Yeah, when I navigate through here, yep.
You see, it selects field previous item is still selected, not the current one.
Yes, you know what it is? I noticed that too, actually, while I was up here. I screwed up my CSS in here last night, so I'm like highlighting the wrong one, I think. But yeah, good call. Okay, so that was server-side AJAX. There are some times to do some client-side. I think one that's very cool to do is I would like to edit these titles. So I'd like to get, but I don't want to edit a title and do a refresh. I want to edit the title, tab off, and have that asynchronously go and update the database on the server and then edit the other one in a completely unobtrusive kind of way. So the way we'll do that is write a little bit of AJAX, client-side AJAX code to do that. That's primarily to show off how cool our AJAX support is on the client. So rather than that simple eval there, I'm going to take that away. And I have a text input box, so just an HTML3.2 input box, standard thing. And I go ahead and on the onChange event, so this is the client-side event, I'm going to call this JavaScript method called onTitleChange. And on that, I'm going to pass the value of the text box, and I'm going to do another eval call and get the ID of the current photo that we're on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I go ahead and keep the value to be the current ID. So then I'm going to come up here, and remember the other content template we had within the head? That was so I can come in here and put some script. So, go ahead and do some JavaScript here. I wanted to do VB script, but they wouldn't let me do that. And then I think this took the title and the ID. So now a couple of things to show you here. One, we have great JavaScript IntelliSense support. So here I can say var d gets, and I can come in here and access. It's very common to access the elements of the DOM. So I can come in here and do that. And then I can do d dot, and it actually completes that. I get IntelliSense over the DOM. So that's kind of a cool feature. But what else is cool is that JavaScript's actually a loosely typed language. So while that was a DOM element before, I've just changed it and now it's a string. That's how JavaScript works. That's kind of legal. So we want IntelliSense to be just as smart. So now when I hit this, now we know that it's actually a string. We're actually doing a feature called type inferencing, and we're knowing we're actually executing the JavaScript as you type it in. So we know what type all the variables are at any given moment in the flow of control. So that's kind of a very nice IntelliSense-y sort of feature. Whoops, I don't want to use that. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to show you is how many have done alert-style debugging in JavaScript? You put an alert. Yeah, totally done that. So no more is it needed. So I'll show you a couple of these kind of ways to use debug trace, and we can just say title plus title. So that's the debug trace thing we have, and then I can actually demo two features at once and actually show you. I can set a breakpoint on here, and then when I hit F5 to run this, Visual Studio will run it, and it'll actually tell me that Internet Explorer is not configured to enable JavaScript debugging. This is kind of the first thing that hits a lot of people when they're trying to do JavaScript debugging in older versions of VS, is that they didn't know you have to go configure IE. So now we tell you, and you'll be happy to know in IE8 we just automatically do it for you for just that one session. But in current versions of IE, what you need to do is come in and on the Advanced tab, go in and disable JavaScript, or make JavaScript debugging enabled. And now when we hit F5, it should bring this up. Yep, and so now you see I have the text box down here, and I can say changed value. And then when I tab off it, it calls my JavaScript function and brings me in here to this method. And so now I'm in here, and I have the full power of debugging within Visual Studio. So for example, I can come in and step over. So I can step through this. I can go through and highlight variables within there and get kind of a nice view there. I can look in here and kind of get a sense for what's available there. My favorite feature is the kind of the immediate window, because I can come in here and actually evaluate JavaScript values kind of right from within there. And then the other thing to notice is this sysdebug trace, which again we'll look at a little bit more in a minute. But in debugging mode, it actually goes ahead and outputs those to the debug console. So you can run your application and then look at the debug console and do some kind of tracing from within there. So that's kind of cool, JavaScript debugging. But we want to do a little bit more than that. What we actually want to do is update the data model on the server. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to actually write a web service in WCF, and we're going to expose that as JSON. So it gets serialized down as JavaScript object notation. It's a standards-based way to communicate between client and server as JavaScript objects. And then on the client, we want to evaluate that JavaScript object, turn it back into JavaScript, and go ahead and set properties on it. So let's see if we can do all that. Visual Studio is going to make it very easy, I think, to do that. So I'm going to come in and add a new item, and I will see if I can find the JSON service there. And I'll call it the photo service. And then in here, we'll get to write another interesting call to link. We'll look at link a little bit more. So here I want to just set photo title, and then I want to take the string title and an int, which is the ID. Okay, so now what we need to do here is go ahead and access the link model. And just to save time, because you've seen me do this a couple times, is I just drag this in here. So the way this works, we access the exact same photo database, and then we do a query here. And notice we're using that where I showed you before. And this time we're doing where ID equals the ID that was passed in, and go ahead and select the photo. And then because this could theoretically return more than one, we query through there and we find the first one and get the title and just go ahead and set the title. So that returned a .NET object, a photo object, and we go ahead and set the title for that. And then we call submit changes. And what that does is actually does the call back up to the server to take the .NET objects that we have, and it does a diff graph, what changed on them, and then sends that back to the server. And then we just return back some token thing to tell us that that's changed. So let's go ahead and build this. Make sure, okay, I'm all good. So now what we need to do is be able to call this method. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That would have screwed me up later. Okay, so yeah, nothing changed here. Okay, so we have this method, but now we want to call this method from client-side JavaScript. And we actually looked at, if you're familiar with WCF, you know they use WS star, SOAP, XML. Turns out XML processing on the client is really expensive to parse all the XML. So instead, what we want to do is call it back using JSON. And the default way I've actually added this service in the web config file, it's kind of set up to do that as JSON. So we'll come back in here and come back to our favorite script manager guy. And we want to tell Script Manager about this new service that we've just added. So Script Manager has a services node, and within services we can add a service reference and path, and then it gives me a nice completion and tells me that path. So I don't know if you noticed down here at the very bottom, it's happening pretty quickly, but you can see it's actually saying updating JavaScript IntelliSense. So what we're doing at design time is we're going off from calling that web service and retrieving the metadata for the service, compiling it as JavaScript objects, and giving it back to me. Which means when I come back up here to call this JavaScript method, then I have that photo data service. This is the one we just defined with the set title method on it. And now I can just pass title, ID, and then I can, because this is AJAX, the A in AJAX, anybody? Asynchronous, thank you, yes. So we go ahead and it doesn't return a result directly because we want to make sure this is asynchronous. So we go ahead and define an onComplete method that we want that guy to return. So, and it has a result guy argument. And then in here, I'll just do another sysdebug trace with the results. You could imagine doing other things with the results, but since we're primarily just updating the server, this is a fine thing to do. So now from here, I can go ahead and view that in the browser. And now what should be happening is as I page through here, actually, how about we do this one in Firefox? Because I want to show you something else that's very cool. So let's do this in Firefox. Because I know all our AJAX stuff works in every browser. Okay, so Firefox is going to render this. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, so now, anybody know what does F12 do in Firefox? Come on, F12 in Firefox. Firebug, anybody Firebug? Firebug is a third-party plugin to Firefox that really helps do a lot of debugging within Firefox. So if you're doing JavaScript development, I encourage you to go get that. So so there's notice I flipped over to the console window here. That's going to show these, I think. So we can do change the title here. We tab off it. And then notice this is that debug output that we put in that. So you don't have to do those alerts. It actually just shows up in this console. There's actually a control that you can put on your page to show it in IE if you wanted to, but I just want to kind of show it integrated into here. And then if you notice the post that's going, you can kind of see that what is sent is this JSON where, what's returned, the response is highlighted here. So what's sent is title changed, and ID 1, and what comes back is completed 1. So that gives you a sense for what's happening. So I can change a few of these. Mix and 4, whatever. I'm not super creative. And notice it's going and asynchronously doing those. And it's updating the data model on the server. So next time when I go and refresh it and bring it back, it just brings it back right out of the database. And hopefully those will be the changed titles that we saw. So see, it's very easy to go in and write a service that goes in and changes the database on the server. So, okay, very cool. So, yes?
Yeah, go back to your code. When your function, the onComplete,
Yes.
That's your callback function.
That's right, yeah.
What if you don't want to do asynchronous?
Well, I don't know what to tell you. There's really, there are times where that is a good thing to do, but the browser kind of fundamentally is asynchronous. So you'd have to kind of do hacks around it to get it to not be. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. But for usability reasons, I strongly encourage you to, because that's what, when the browser is going white, that's what happens sometimes. So, I think we've worked hard to try to make it pretty easy to do this kind of thing asynchronously. Yeah. Oh, view source? Sure, I should have done that earlier, actually. Where is it here? Let me do it. Control U. Okay. Is there anything in particular you want to see? Oh, what is the sysdebug changed to? So we're just calling it, you won't see it here. We're for sysdebug, that's what it is. We call it, sys is part of the Microsoft AJAX library. So it just calls into that, and that calls into the various browser mechanisms to get debugging output. So it's part of the... But since you had me show the source, one thing I want to show you is, we've done a lot of work on this site, but look how clean this the UL is and the LIs. I mean, those are still super clean kind of things that is still kind of very nicely structured. Yeah. Am I? It does look like I am. Is it there? Not there. Not there. Did I delete it? I thought I didn't delete it. I could have deleted it. Oh, when I did this earlier? Well, I'm glad HTML is so forgiving. Has it been bugging you? Okay, good. I'm very glad we got that fixed then. Just joking with you. Okay. Hopefully that'll still not break my site when that happens. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you could put those sysdebugs into your JavaScript library and they would show up. Yep. I think so. Try it out. Let me know if it doesn't. I think it does. Yeah, I'll take one more in there.
There's starting to be some focus in the web development community on moving JavaScript out to separate files.
Yes.
How much of that scripting can you take out and get out of your HTML?
Yeah, in fact, all of it. In fact, I was working last night or the night before on it, and they actually encouraged me to do the IntelliSense and whatnot actually gets better if it's outside of the file. So you can totally go in and add a separate JavaScript file and then add a link to it. And in that case, things like dot comments and things like that, which I didn't have time to show you, will start showing up. So all of it continues to work. So think of this. I mean, I might have done a little bit too much demo scenario having it in the page. Okay, so we got to press on. We might run out of time. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, let's go in and talk about how I might add a new item. So we got this list of photos. I might want to add a new item. So let's go back to the master page, add a new context page. And I'm going to go ahead and call this one very creatively add photo. So now from within here, we want to use the ASP form view control to take a look at. And this is, ID equals. Okay, and so what this is going to do is let us view only one of those items. And I'm going to go ahead and change the default mode here to insert, because all I want to do is show the insert template from form view. So I'm showing you form view because what I wanted to show you, I mentioned, we showed you kind of data binding in code, which is cool sometimes, but it's also neat to be able to do data binding, kind of the visual data binding that we've used with the other server controls. And Link has great support for that. We have a specific, a new data source called a link data source that shows up here, and it knows about that link data model. It knows about the data context object. So there's the data context right there that it wants to bind against. And because it knows about the data context, it already gives me some choices here. So in this case, I only want a couple of these guys. I could also come in and specify kind of how to do groups. I could build up the queries. I'm not going to do that, but I could go ahead and build those up in this dialog like we did in code earlier. So all that is completely available to you. So I'll go ahead and refresh that. And now what I want to do is, so you can see just from the preview here, it's going to give me a pretty nice form-based view, couple of labels, some text boxes. That's nice, but this is an AJAX talk. Let's see if we can make it a little more AJAX-y. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in here and say edit templates. And then the template is the one we want is the insert item template. And the first one I'm going to go work on here is this tags guy. And with tags, what I'd like to do is a Google suggest. See, I said it again. A Yahoo suggest kind of thing. You type it in Yahoo, and it kind of automatically completes the search thing for you. I think Live, does Live have that? Well, okay, Live has that too. Okay, good. So if you wanted to go build that on your own, we have a new set of extender concept, and this is a way to add functionality to existing controls. So I'm going to come in and do an add autocomplete extender, and that's going to do the autocompletion. And then we need to tell it what to autocomplete with. So I'm going to add a new page method, and you notice it automatically pre-generated this stub, this get completion list. And what we want to do here is, in the interest of time, I'm going to do another link query over my database. And this time, the way this works is you pass in the prefix text, what have they typed so far, and then a number of items to return back. So what they've typed so far, we just get the tag name where it starts with the prefix text that's passed in, and then we go ahead and return only the first count number of these. So let's take a look at what that did within my code. So it actually created this autocomplete text box and wired up all the methods it needed to. And then I'll do the minimum prefix length, and just for demo purposes, set the minimum prefix length to 1. And then when we go ahead and refresh this, what will happen is, or maybe this one, see which one comes back first. Yeah, so so sorry, I need to actually come in here and do the photos one. So add photo, I called it. Oh, yes, and there's the script manager one. It would be a great feature if we automatically added script manager, wouldn't it? Okay, so I'm getting good at adding it, though. Okay. So now if I come in here to tags and I type D, what it's going to do is go ahead and look at all the tags in the database, find the ones that match, and I can go ahead and complete with those. So that's the nice autocomplete extender. This is in AJAX. I'm showing you the AJAX toolkit stuff. Yeah. So what he's pointing out is the AJAX control toolkit is an open source project that we have, and all those controls. Let's see if I have them here. All those controls, this whole list of controls, is available. They work beautifully with VS 2008. You can just add them to your toolbox. In fact, let me show you a couple of them. So let's see, we're in the right place here. We need to be the insert item template. Right, so that ratings box, that's just not doing anything for me. That's not very AJAX-y. I like the Netflix-style ratings thing. So let's find the ratings guy. So the control toolkit also has this ratings that does the nice star thing. And I've noticed that on the site sometimes people don't know what to put in for the description. So we have this nice kind of watermark that you can go do. And I've also noticed that sometimes people are inserting items to the database kind of by accident. So what we really want to do is have a confirm button here just to ask them, whoops, that's the wrong one. Are you really sure you want to add this to the database? So now when I go in and refresh this, then notice I get this watermark here. That's very nice. When I edit in there, the watermark goes away. If I delete it, the watermark comes back. The nice kind of ratings thing. The tag thing continues to work. And then when I hit insert, it does that. So you can see in just a couple of minutes, I was able to really add some great AJAX value to the site. So that is cool. But I'm wondering if there's any kind of people here that are kind of perf paranoid and wondering, what did I just do to the site? Like, what was added to this site? So you want to kind of get a look at what's there. Let me just go ahead and clear that out. So again, this is in Firebug and Firefox. And if you look down here, I'm showing just the JavaScript requests that are being done here while the page is rendering. You can see there's quite a few of these script resource AXDs that are coming down. And this is essentially if you kind of drill in here to the response, this is the JavaScript for the text watermark. This one is the one for kind of some of the base AJAX functionality. So what it amounts to is that when I've added all that richness to my site, I've actually gone in and kind of caused several loads to happen. So you can see here, let me just close that up. How many loads total? 13 total loads and 122 KB. So that was kind of a lot. And the toolkit today has a way to address it, but in a servicing release of the framework that's coming out soon, we have kind of one more trick to show you. So what I'm going to do is add a new control to this page that will come out in SP1. Let's see, I'm in the right place. Yes, right here. Okay, and this is called a script reference, and what it's going to do is show me kind of what all the scripts that are being loaded are. I think it'll show me that if I save it and hit refresh nicely. Yes, so this is showing me all, it's kind of a debugging output. It's showing me 12 scripts were loaded, and this is what they all were. And then it's actually creating a debug version and a retail version of all those scripts in the same file. So the debug version, so you can read it. The retail version is crunched, so we got rid of all the white space. Anything we could collapse, we collapsed. All in the same file. So now I can right-click on this, save it out as a static file, and then tell Script Manager, go get that static file rather than each one of the script resources. So that way there'd be only one download. And in a static file like this, I can share it across my entire site. I can get kind of the optimal one for the entire site. But for this purposes, for just this page, I'm going to take those script resources that were there and go back to this handy-dandy Script Manager that we love so much. And it has a new node in it called Composite Scripts. And under Composite Scripts, I can add Script Node. And I just cut and paste all those script references in here. And this is going to tell, this will tell ASP.NET to, let me just clear this out. This will tell ASP.NET to combine all those scripts on the server and send it down only once, and send down only one. So now when this page is loaded, what will happen is you see we only have one, we only have the one script reference. And that script reference has all those in there. And notice it's even smaller than, not only do you don't have multiple requests for this, it's also a little bit smaller because the gzip algorithm that the web servers use by default actually works better over if it's kind of in one contiguous unit. Yeah. No, the beautiful thing about this is it works for any of your scripts. If you add that control to the page, it shows you all of the scripts that are being loaded, your own custom ones, third-party ones, whatever, and it combines them with the core scripts that are needed for update panel or whatnot. Yeah. Yeah, so where? Yeah, but in which scenario? Like in the... Yes, good call. So I didn't actually do any validation in this whatsoever. So I did take random user input, call it to the web server, and just stick that into the database. So if you had written a stored procedure, it would have fired on that. And then my hunch is in a real-world scenario, you're going to want to do some data validation in the web service before you actually commit it to the database. Any other? Yeah. Yes, IE is actually doing something like Firebug. They are, in fact, they demoed it a little bit in the keynote. IE8 has a new add-in that lets you do debugging within IE. And they're kind of working on some additional stuff, so they are working on it. There is Nikhil Katari has a web developer helper that plugs into all versions of IE that gives you the exact same net traces that I showed you here. Yeah, there's another question. Yeah.
My question was, is the IE team going to implement everything that Nikhil has in his, or are they not going to the
I don't know every feature that Nikhil has. They're still kind of deciding on the exact right feature set. So if you have feedback for them about what would be good.
Things like view state, IE wouldn't necessarily.
Right, exactly. So they're probably not going to do the ASP.NET specific items. But if you have feedback, again, you can feel free to send it to me, and I'll make sure the IE team gets that.
It'd be nice if they have plug-in support so that you can write your own.
That's a very good suggestion. That's a very good suggestion. Yeah.
I've got a question about data access.
Okay.
Going linked SQL classes.
Yep.
Can you use the NTG service in SQL Server 2008 for that?
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. So the question was essentially about link to SQL and entity framework. So I showed link to SQL primarily because they asked me to do a VS 2008 talk, and that's what's in VS 2008. But you could do literally the exact same demo with entity framework, and I challenge you to find the difference there. It would look like very, very close to all the code would look the same. The designer would be a little bit different, but it would look the same. Yeah.
You talked about the history.
Yep. Yep.
At the very beginning, when they started talking about history, they talked about update panel notifications. But for some reason, people stopped talking about that. Is that
No, you can totally still do that. You can totally still do update panel notifications. Basically, what you would do is set a trigger. I showed you a little bit about triggers in update panel to be the script manager history control, and that can make sure, like when you hit back or navigate or whatever, that the given update panel would update.